the shit they're doing is hard.
Oh, yeah.
And if we can make it a place through our actions that, through showing that we care in all regards, like that's presence and attitude to me.
Welcome to Behind the Knowledge, a best hour podcast where we dive deep into the lives and stories of inspiring coaches from all walks of life. The two hosts of this show are me, Pat Barber, and my good friend and fellow coach, Todd Occhiuto. Each week, we'll sit down with the most amazing coaches we can find, uncovering their unique paths, the challenges they've faced, and passions that continue to drive them. Whether you're a seasoned coach, an aspiring one, or simply somebody who likes listening to stories of how people achieve the success that they have, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired by the powerful stories and insights from the world of coaching. This is Behind the Knowledge. Let's jump in.
All right, we're back, Behind the Knowledge. Once again, talking about the 6 criteria. This time we are discussing presence and attitude. Mm-hmm. And this is a good one for the two of us to discuss because the way that we present our presence and attitude, very different.
Yeah. You present very different.
It just depends on the day.
I think this is going to be fun because Todd and I think objectively speaking, I can look at how Todd coaches a class and say he's effective. Because that's the goal, right? The goal of all this coaching, the 6 criteria, is to be effective. And we define effective as people walking away, being fitter, healthier, happier, life's good, right? And both of us have run successful gyms. Todd currently does it and does it really, really well. So if both of us are effective, yet do something drastically different, it's definitely worth talking about. So...
yeah, so how do you do it? What's your approach to presence and attitude as it relates to coaching on the gym floor?
Yeah. If I were to boil down presence and attitude for me, I think I would say if you watched my style from the outside looking in, I am louder and more engaging in terms of
more engaging
than you. Yeah. I force people to look at me via the way that I act and how that I speak and how I speak. My background is in theater and voice and musical stage. So projection and being the doofus who's pay attention to me because you have to is kind of what I've always done. And it's taken years to refine that to actually be the right things to say, right? So when I think about presence and attitude, running and managing a class, on a big picture, if you're looking at it from the outside looking in, I would say I'm more of a presentation and let's play. I'm gonna play with you, and I'm gonna try to poke fun, and I'm gonna tell a joke, and I'm gonna move through, and I'm gonna be fast and that's how I tend to do it. Now, if I had to say, what do I view presence and attitude's actual, where has this gone for me, is I would say that my presence and attitude, what I'm trying to do is make each person feel seen in a class. But I do it on an outset and a larger thing of big and dumb and over the top. And then refine it down to individualized interactions.
Yeah, I see that when I see you coach, for sure. Look at me. I see that.
Exactly.
I see that.
So I'm actually curious, before you go into yours, what do you see in my presence and attitude? Because if you were to
No, I would completely agree with what you said there. Is you're putting on a performance, which I think we all are when we step on stage to coach a class. But it is a bigger performance than what I know myself that I do. And there is a lot of that. I'm going to lighten the mood with something that is a joke. Most of the time you direct it at yourself and things like that, which is great. And so I just think it's I'll say more over the top, not in a bad way, more over the top than I typically do it myself.
So if I were to say then, what is your strategy and theory behind your presence and attitude?
I'll tell you right now that it's been a journey. This is probably, out of the 6 criteria, the one that I've had to put the most work into, just in general, to level up my coaching overall, because I am very much more systematized probably than you are. I know what I want to accomplish. I know how to teach. I want people to move well. I want them to hit the stimulus of the workout. I want to hit my timeline. I want to get everything done. And I want to connect with everybody, but I think connecting and making people feel seen and heard, as you made mention there, is something that I've had to work more towards. And a lot of what I do, and you see that I'm more stoic. So number one, when I started coaching, I was so concerned with doing the thing that it was hard for me to relax and have fun myself, and in turn that makes it less fun for the people in front of me. And then as I started to relax more, I think my approach to humor is more dry and subtle and sarcastic. And you've got either people that realize that about me and know that I'm joking pretty much about everything and they laugh and they enjoy it, or they don't know that I'm joking and they think I'm serious and they hate me. And so I think figuring out how to make it known when I'm being sarcastic and joking, and that is simply doing something like a smile. Hey, I'm going to say this. My tendency and what I want to do is hold a straight face to make it feel like it's serious, but then I'm going to stop and smile so that the class knows that I'm joking. More names, which is one of the objective things that we can work on to do presence and attitude. And it's like, I still want to be me. I want to be the biggest version of myself. I want to check in with people. I want to give them confidence by trying to build them up on the things that they're doing well. And like when I, looking at scaling workouts for people, I try to do that in a way of like, oh yeah, you've got this. This is definitely you. Even if I'm taking them down a notch as far as loading or whatever, like making them feel good about what that is. And so, I don't know whether I got anywhere there.
No, you did.
Or just rambled about that.
Well,
but yeah.
I like what you said, though, like talking about where you started and where you are. And I think I can really echo that in what I'm going to kind of layer a bigger thing on it is like when I first started my big over the top stuff, like I had fun for me. Like I was having fun, right? When you started, you put people in this structure for you. Like you were there for you to make sure you got these things across. And that same structure can then come full circle to like be structure for them in a way that you're there for them. That's where we evolve to as we improve as a coach. And I think that's where I want them to have fun. I'm going to be bigger and louder for them now. It's not for me anymore. And so that subtly shifts like the overall presence and attitude from like a self-serving thing to and you still have fun and I still have fun. But but what I'm saying is like that I think that is the evolution of presence and attitude initially is like you've got a presentation how you do stuff. And you initially have to be so focused to some degree on like making it about getting the job done and whatever you prioritize that job as. And yours was movement, mine was having a good time.
Yeah.
and then it becomes making the whole presence and attitude about them and like servicing them, and that is the growth in all of it, and refining that through whatever style that you have ends up being quite fun, quite difficult, but like rewarding, I would say.
Yeah, and I think your point there of like, why am I doing this, and that obviously fits into presence and attitude as you just discussed it, but also like when it comes to our teaching scene and correcting, like I'll see people that are teaching in a way where it's like you're covering everything that is so irrelevant. It might be true, but so irrelevant. Are you doing this because it's going to benefit your athletes, or is it going to show everybody how smart you are? Same thing when it comes to seeing, correcting, all the rest of that stuff. Yeah. Like same thing with even demonstration. You ever seen people that are like, all right, guys, I'm going to show you a muscle up. Here's 10. Yeah. And you're like, nobody needs to demonstrate 10 consecutive muscle ups. Like, cool. Wow, hey, cool. We're snatching today. Let me show you 225 real quick. And it's like, that's for you, not for them. And so figuring that stuff out. Now, it's cool that we talk about, hey, there's two very distinct and obvious styles between us. And if anybody's followed this before, they've probably seen some content from the two of us coaching-wise. And it's obvious there, right? We've got footage of us coaching on the knowledge. There's videos on YouTube, all that kind of stuff. So you guys can see the difference there. But that being said, there are some things that are similar, and there's some commonalities between strong presence and attitude and some ways to make it less subjective and more objective. Mm-hmm. What are some of those things that people can actually objectively work on to be better at presence and attitude?
I think making sure, like an objective one is that people need to be paying attention to you. How you do that is up to you, but people need to be paying attention. You need to be controlling the class. It kind of comes into that group management, but it's part of presence and attitude. So however you present, whether it be through more subtlety or whether it be through sarcasm, whether it be through structure, like there needs to be a sense of like you're in control of what's happening. And that is done through whatever style of presence and attitude you choose to do.
And I like, this has been referenced, and I'm sure others have heard this before, of like, if somebody walks in off the street and you're coaching a class, there should be no question of who's in charge.
Right.
If somebody walks in and it's unsure of who's actually running what's happening inside the gym, we're probably missing right there.
Totally.
It should be very clear and obvious. And I like the fact that you pointed out of like, you need to be in charge, but that can be different for each and every person, because that's one of the things that I think I had to find my style as I was coaching, because it was like, man, I saw these people that were very loud and did the look at me thing, and I would try that, and I'm like, that's not it.
Yeah.
I'd see the people that were like, the back group in the corner is talking over me, and I want to move on to the next section, and so I'm just going to try to talk louder, and then they talk louder, and it creates this environment of chaos, especially in like level ones. I did that a lot.
Totally.
You can learn how loud silence can be, and now it's like, all right, if I want to get your attention, instead of trying to talk louder, I actually stop talking.
Yeah.
It's like, cool. Sooner or later, either they'll figure it out that they're like, something's not happening and try to look for that, or the person next to them will give them the elbow in the ribs and be like, yo, I want to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Shut up and pay attention to them. So I like that, like being present and like showing your presence by being in control is a big piece there.
Are you a CrossFit coach who's feeling stuck in their development? You're not alone. Many coaches lack good guidance when it comes to how to develop as a coach. They either don't have strong examples they find themselves around, they may lack support from their gym owner, and they just feel unprepared going into their next credential. That's why we made the Knowledge Pro, to fill that gap. It's a mentorship program built for coaches like you. It uses the Knowledge Daily, our comprehensive video library, as well as extra content that we put directly into the Knowledge Pro on our live weekly calls twice a week to mentor you and get you to the next level of development. We've got progressions, we've got scales, we've got one-off tips and tricks, we've got full coached classes by level 4 coaches so you can see an example of what it means to do this job well. All of that will also be walked through each week on those live calls, so that you have a soundboard to bounce off of and a group of coaches looking to be better to help support you in your endeavors. Coaching isn't just knowing what to do, it's also knowing how to do it. And that takes 2 things. 1, an example, and 2, practice. Practice is on your end, you got to go out there and do it. We can help provide that example and the support with the Knowledge Pro. If you want to know more, click the link below and give the Knowledge Pro a shot. I look forward to seeing you on one of the next calls.
What else is objective?
I think being, and this kind of comes with everything, but it's clarity and like clear, like with everything that's going on. I think presence and attitude is something where like a good presence and attitude, whether it be loud and over the top or whether it be subtle and behind the scenes, it's like really clear the demands and what you want. It's like there's no, and this again, it could fall into group management, but it could be clarity around cues. It could be clarity around everything. It's like, it's just the clear as kind. If people know what they're doing, they know how they're doing it, they know like exactly what you're saying. You're not alluding to stuff. It's just like you just say stuff and it's understood by the people who are in front of you. I think that's a huge part of presence and attitude. And again, that can be done a number of different ways.
Yeah, that I smile at the alluding stuff. There's nothing worse than when someone's like, yeah, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm like, no idea what you're talking about. Like, no idea what you're referencing right now.
Yeah. What jumps out to you is something that like is an objective piece?
There's some things that we talk about in coach development and also in the Knowledge Pro with our lessons, and it's like simple things of using people's names. Mm-hmm. You know, if you've been to the level 2 or if you've gone through that content, we define presence and attitude as having these 3 characteristics. You've got to be passionate, and it needs to be about serving other people, not just passionate about CrossFit and working out yourself. You need to have some empathy, be able to relate to somebody, and then also care, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, cool, there's these 3 characteristics. What does that look and feel like for each and every individual? Well, I know one thing that will show people you care, and that's saying their names. Mm-hmm. The more we can say people's names, mm-hmm. the better. And it's like, we'll talk about at a minimum, you should say people's names 3 times in class. But if you do the math and really think about it, that's probably way too little. Because it's, you walk in, I'm like, hey, Pat, how's it going? There's 1. We get, at some point in the teaching, I go, hey, Pat, knees out. There's 2. We finish class, and I go, Pat, what was your time? And I write it on the board. There's 3. If I've only said it 3 times and I've not, like, been, great job pushing your knees out, Pat, you know, chest up, Pat, when are you coming back to my gym, Pat? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it probably realistically should be 8 or 10 times, but names is a big piece of that. The demeanor that you have of making eye contact when you're talking to somebody, standing tall, mm-hmm. and smiling.
Yeah.
How, you know, same thing, going back to myself and my experience, like when I was starting coaching and I was so concerned about teaching the way I needed to teach and hitting the points of performance, smiling was not part of that.
That's fair.
You know, and so those three things, like stand tall, make eye contact, use names, smile. I guess that's 4 things. Those are all big objective things that people can actually work on and start to implement, and that's going to show the care, show the passion, show the empathy for people, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the underlying fact around all of this, I do think that the main thing with presence and attitude is that not only do you care, but do they know that you care?
Yep.
Like that the passion comes out, those other pieces come out. But I think you just got, they have to, whatever you do, they have to know that you care. And all the things that we're mentioning here, saying someone's name lets them know that you care. Giving them individualized cues lets them know that you care. Planning for your class lets them know that you care. You know, being able to manage the flow lets them know that you care. So all of these little things come together. Also, like knowing about their family and knowing, like noticing that they got a haircut. No, like all of these little things are ways that you let people know that you care, and that really is presence and attitude. Like the thing we talk about it, and I've mentioned this, I don't know why I've said it so many times this weekend already, but we're here at the Mastermind for Best Hour, which is why I'm saying this weekend. But the difference between positional authority and personal authority. Presence and attitude to me is basically manifesting such good personal authority. And positional authority being like, as a coach, you're already in positional authority. People have to listen to you.
Yeah.
So they're going to be listening to you regardless. Now, do they want to listen to you?
Yeah.
Would they listen to you regardless of whether you were the coach or not? You're just some random guy. Like, and that's what we're trying to develop, is such a presence through whatever means that people want to pay attention to us and want to push hard for us and excel, and like for themselves too. But like we can be this figure that they feel comfortable and, like, for lack of a better term, safe and willing to go beyond their boundaries, because the shit they're doing is hard.
Oh yeah.
And if we can make it a place through our actions, that through showing that we care in all regards, like, that's presence and attitude to me.
Yeah, and I think showing that you're open, that you care, that they're safe. Like I talked about standing tall, but posture and like what you're doing with your arms, it's crazy how powerful that is, right? The crossed arms coach up in the front looks closed off.
Yeah.
Like, how safe am I? Or the one with the hands in the pockets, leaning against the pull-up rig, looks pretty disinterested.
Yeah.
So even standing tall and making sure we're avoiding hands in the pockets, arms crossed, you know, our Sharpie or our marker in our pocket, or snapping the lid on and off, holding the PVC pipe like it's a protective shield as we're coaching in between things. That kind of stuff matters. As far as making people feel safe and comfortable and willing, that we are open for them and to them. And then the acronym that we teach, once again, both in coach development and the Knowledge Pro, around showing that you care. And that is that FORWARD acronym. Mm-hmm. What am I talking about when I say FORWARD?
FORWARD is something that I found on a podcast years ago, and then Jason Ackerman stole and put into all of the curriculum.
I thought Jason created it.
Yeah, I mean, he'll tell you that he did, but I found it on a NPR podcast for emotionally intelligent people, or people people who lack emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Which is what this was all about. So FORWARD is FORD, which is family, occupation, recreation, and dreams, and it's a way of connecting with people in something outside just the coaching that allows you to show that they care. And just like anything that you try that's new, it feels funky and inauthentic at first, and then becomes better as you do it.
and so what you mean by that, and what we mean by the acronym, those are the things that we can use to drive conversations with people. And I don't know about you, you're probably way better at it than I am, but I'm more introverted, you're more extroverted. Talking to people isn't the easiest thing in the world. Like, I don't always feel comfortable or confident or want to go and talk to people. And so this gives me a framework of questions to ask. And this is, I think, is especially important in our gyms when we are coaching, because inevitably there's people that are easy to talk to. Maybe they're your people that are your friends. You guys like the same stuff. It's easy to joke and have fun. But then there's somebody that's either new to the gym, they're a little bit more drawn back and they're in the corner, or they haven't connected with people, and it's like, how do I get them included in this stuff? And as coaches, if I spend all my time talking to the people that I like and I know, and that's easy, that person's going to stay isolated, and the likelihood of them sticking around is probably pretty low, and feeling seen and heard and all that. So if I can go out of my way to start a conversation, and if you're like me and that's uncomfortable in general, and you've got this Ford acronym, and it's like, hey, I'm going to ask you about your family. Hey, you're new here, Pat. You know, is it just you in town, whatever, like your wife here, do you have kids, any of that kind of stuff. And it allows us to continue to dig in, to have conversations maybe that aren't the easiest conversations in the world, and it allows us to do the thing that Chuck Carswell always says, and he's known for this, right? We've said it on more best hour stuff than I can even count. Ask one more question.
Yeah.
Cool, you ask one more question. You've talked about spouses, partners, kids, parents, grandkids, cousins. All right, I've covered all the family. Now I'm going to talk about your occupation. Get to know that. All right, we've covered all that. Well, what do you do for fun? What kind of recreation do you have? We've covered all of that. What's next? What are your dreams? And I'll tell you right now that that's the one that's most challenging for me and probably most challenging for other people.
Oh, yeah.
But it allows you to continue to dig deeper and ask one more question and make that connection even more and show people that you care, which is ultimately what we're trying to do.
For sure. And I think, like, just something to note on that acronym, it helps that you actually are interested. Like, when you ask the question, don't just listen to the answer. Cool, push your knees out, like
yeah.
Ask the question and be genuinely interested in the answer. And I would argue that if you're not interested in people, this is a weird profession for you to be in.
Yeah.
Like your interest should be in them, and it can be around their movement and that kind of stuff. But like, if you're asking questions to people, make sure you're paying attention to the answers and just like being there and present. Like,
well, and if you're not, it's not going to get lost on them, because when you ask the same question next class or next week, and they're like, yeah, I told you that last week, and you're like, oh, you did? Huh.
Good.
You're like,
yeah.
All right, well, that's not going to go
care.
very well. Yeah, you clearly don't care. This is a game you're playing. And that doesn't mean that, like, when you ask a question, you should have that, that steel vault to where you're going to memorize every possible thing, but be curious.
Yeah.
Be curious about people, about what's going on in their lives. Get to know them. That shows them that you care. And the more conversations that you have.
Something I want to note just with presence and attitude, I think Todd and I talked about our current presence and attitude and how we run it. But the goal is to not just like stick with one. The goal is not to be like, this is who I am. This is how it is. Because like you can do that on the flip side of things is like, oh, I'm big and loud, and that's all I do. But within that, there's a lot of flaws. There's a lot of ways to improve upon that, or even there's people who don't respond to that. So you're going to need to, as you evolve as a coach, develop more subtle ways of, seeing how that big and loud is working with the individuals that you have in front of you. Similarly, like, no, I'm quiet and reserved, and this is what I do. It's like you don't just hunker down in where you're at. The goal is as we're expanding our presence attitude, is like to understand how we're impacting the people in front of us and learn how we can bring more or less of things out to be truly effective in the long run. So it starts with like, what am I naturally? And the also goal is to not necessarily see like, okay, that's what I want to be, and just be that other thing. Like you have to kind of enhance your own sense of what you are. Like the way I've described it before is I saw this documentary on clowns. And clowns are.
Was that when you were studying to be a clown yourself?
No. That came naturally to me to be a clown.
I was going to say you'd be an expert.
No, but it was talking about when you go to clown school, they don't say, okay, everyone's going to be Bozo the clown. They say, okay, find the clown inside of you and be that clown. And it's like, it's a silly one, but like there's a bunch of different versions of what it means to be a clown. Whether you're like the tumbler, or whether you're the gimmick guy, or you're a slapstick, or like, and so it's like, which one of these are you? And you need to like make, or you're a mime or whatever it is, and you bring that version of you out, and the biggest version of that. So when you hear someone on a coaching dev call or something like that be like, the biggest you, it's not be Pat, it's not be Todd, it's be like,
be a clown.
Be a clown.
The biggest clown.
The biggest clown you can.
Be your own clown.
Be your own clown, but the biggest clown.
But the biggest version of you. But no, yeah, be the biggest version of yourself. Figure out who you are, how you're going to display that you care, that you're passionate about what you're doing, that you have empathy for the person and the people in your class, and be you at 11. That's just another way of saying be the biggest version of yourself.
Yep. And then once you are you and the best version of you, learn how to maximize those other places.
Yep. Love it, man.
nonstop. Can't stop, won't stop. Keep growing.
Presence and attitude. Let's go.
P&A, baby. P&A.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Behind the Knowledge. Now, if you want help developing your coaching and to learn from us directly, check out The Knowledge Pro. There we host live calls with our coaches every week where we discuss content together and work on skills to improve our on-the-floor coaching ability. To learn more, you can head over to besthouroftheirday.com/theknowledge. And if you found this content helpful, we're going to be releasing new episodes every week, so subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.